PRC and Russia have invested in counter space capabilities.
You are ready to fight tonight with an awesome response to anyone who attacks this country. Is that correct? To impose unthinkable costs on a potential adversary.
And we talked about directed energy, and I know that is something they're looking at.
I want more than looking at. I want development, and soon.
I think it's 79 years old now.
70.
70, all right. Almost as old as some senators. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I call it a resto mod, Senator.
We can't just keep burning money.
We're ready to fight tonight.
Keep pace with that breathtaking pace.
Great illustrations of a pig and a python. Can you flesh that out a little bit for me as well?
All the nuclear weapons we need to blow up the world into oblivion 1,000 times over.
Are we asking for enough resources for you to get where you need to get on time?
I don't know that resources is necessarily the issue here. I think what I really see is the ability for the industrial base to be able to produce and not drive the gaps. So as we look at the modernized systems,
to the extent that we're proposing to appropriate some $3.4 billion extra for submarine industrial base, that will be helpful, will it not?
it will be helpful, absolutely, sir, on the modernization. Now, to your point, we also need to ensure that the legacy systems have the sustainability that's available to them, so I can maintain the legacy systems as well until the new systems arrive.
Vulnerability window is the fact that our competitors, PRC and Russia, have invested in counter space capabilities, having studied us for decades, to hold at risk our ability to fight the way we would like. And so now we have to make our current space capabilities that provide satellite communications, positioning, navigation, and timing, missile warning, those kind of functions, we have to make them more resilient against those threats and provide protect and defend capability to help protect them. Those investments have been made, but we need to make sure those programs deliver and that we continue to invest to assure that we can support the joint force with those kind of capabilities in the face of these threats.
How are you thinking about the importance of collaboration with the commercial space industry?
Yeah, Senator, thank you for the question. I think U.S. commercial space industry is not just an advantage in space. It is an advantage for this nation, period. And it is an advantage that is widening over our competitors. So we absolutely need to continue to partner with U.S. commercial space industry to leverage the cost curves that they're on, to leverage the speed at which they're operating, to take advantage of as much of that capability as we can. The Space Command is partnered with the Space Force as they look at new ways of contracting with commercial industry, such as the commercial augmentation space reserve that they're looking to start next year. And we're very excited about those opportunities.
Can you please share with the committee how STRATCOM is working with the services, with the undersecretaries of acquisition and sustainment and research and engineering to integrate new technologies and new systems into that NC3 architecture?
Senator, I'd love to. One of the things that was first on the agenda for us was to ensure that as we articulate the modernization of the NC3 force, that we look at it in different bins. The first thing we must do, to your point, is ensure that the NC3 system that is currently available to the President of the United States and to decision makers of the United States has the ability to fight through. So we want to make sure that we looked at systems today and ensure that we're taking care of systems today.
But I want you to restate what you stated in your opening testimony for the benefit of our audience far away. You are ready to fight tonight with an awesome response to anyone who attacks this country. Is that correct?
The men and women that represent United States Strategic Command are ready to defend if strategic deterrence failure happens tonight. We are ready today.
And the capacity of the triad right now is at an actionable level. We are not I don't want anybody to get the impression that we're somehow crippled in terms of our nuclear deterrent. You have the forces you need to defend the country and also to impose unthinkable costs on a potential adversary. Isn't that correct?
I do.
Thank you. You're going to, is directed energy going to be part of the future of missile defense?
Sir, just 2 weeks ago, I was in Huntsville meeting with the Missile Defense Agency, and we talked about directed energy, and I know that is something they're looking at, and I agree with you, Senator. I think it needs to be part of our future.
I want more than looking at. I want development and soon. I think we should be having a capability in the Red Sea right now. That this is an opportunity to use that capacity.
How does China's nuclear arsenal compare to ours today?
Today, we're still superior in there, but like I said, I think the reality is we're going to have to continue to modernize our current systems. We are superior to them today.
Look at I guess you'd call it a first generation aircraft, the B-52. I think it's 79 years old now.
70.
70, all right. Almost as old as some senators. But, you know, we often hear criticism that, like, well, we're flying aircraft that are older than General Cotton. We're flying aircraft that started when these pilots' grandparents were flying it. I kind of subscribe to if it ain't broke, don't fix it philosophy. It can't go into a denied environment, but once air defenses have been reduced and with extended range standoff weapons, it's highly effective. Why is it critical that the Air Force also re-engine the B-52 for your deterrence needs?
Senator Cott, thank you for that question. SERP is absolutely an imperative as part of the nuclear modernization. As you mentioned, yes, it gets picked on quite a bit on its age, but as we look at what the capacity and what the capability is of that weapon system, that platform, it's amazing. And what that will be able to do for us, and I said earlier, we need to think about the ability for it to carry LRSO. It is the platform that will carry LRSO. It is the platform that has a lot of mass as far as capability. And I want it to be able to have a long-range strike standoff capability even greater than it has today.
Thank you. It is old, but if it's well-maintained and modernized, it seems to me that it's still a vital part of our triad.
You are absolutely correct, Senator.
A lot of your troopers would probably love to drive a Chevy Bel Air or a Ford Thunderbird from the 1950s as well. So maybe they should be.
Well, I call it a resto mod, Senator.
Thank you.
General Cotton, you've warned that the complexity of the Sentinel program, I'm quoting you here, will challenge Air Force and industry partners in ways not seen for a generation. So let me ask, do you think it is important to have basic program management guardrails in place to help us prevent delays and cost overruns?
Senator, the rest of that statement was, you're absolutely right, because I've said it numerous times that is going to be a mega project that we haven't seen since actually the onset of the Minuteman III and placement in the early 60s. I'm a taxpayer as well, and I want to ensure that one, I have a weapon system that can deliver the capabilities that I need to deliver. I also need to make sure that we don't create a larger gap in having assessments that would drive us to now question one leg of the triad in regards of how I can produce or have forces go to meet the need.
And I appreciate that, General, but we got to have a plan here that is actually going to work. We can't just keep burning money and saying at some point we hope we're going to be able to deliver this thing.
And I really appreciated Senator King's comments with regard to the fact that we're ready to fight tonight. But can we win that battle? And what about 5 and 10 years from now on the current trajectories?
Senator, thank you for the question. Today, I am completely clear in saying we do have the world's best military space capabilities. I will use the same word that General Cotton used when we look at what China and Russia are doing, particularly building with their counterspace weapons. They are moving breathtakingly fast. And so we must ensure that the investments that have been made, and we thank the Congress for those investments, continue those programs continue to execute, and that we continue to invest to make sure that we keep pace with that breathtaking pace.
General Whiting, what is the current role of the National Guard in space, and how would you transfer the space functions into the Space Force, and what would you need if that is the finding of the study? And the reason for the study was that there was some decision made as to what would happen to National Guard space, well, you could call it space units. There were some decisions made without this kind of plan or study or cost-benefit analysis that would lead to the three options that I mentioned. So what is being contemplated for the National Guard Space Force?
Senator, thank you for the question. From a Space Command perspective, we very much appreciate the great support we get from a number of states that have their Guards units have space missions. And it's vital to us that however those options are resolved, that we don't have an interruption to those missions. I would have to defer to the United States Space Force for the specifics of what options are being analyzed and where they're headed.
In response to something that Senator King, using his usual great illustrations of a pig and a python, I believe is what it was, referencing the lack of capital budgeting in our system. The transparency of budgets is something that's always frustrated me on this committee, particularly as it relates to my favorite service, the Air Force. Thank you. You referenced the role of your command as a national role. Understandably, you're a United Command. Can you flesh that out a little bit for me as well? Because I have long been concerned that we're not adequately, I don't want to say appropriating, but appropriating credit where credit is due, and then cost where cost is due.
Thank you, Senator Kramer. I think, you know, there's a lot of times where there can be confusion, even within a component, service component, that they're advocating for a weapon system or a platform that is utilized in their operational domain. It absolutely is. But when it comes to strategic deterrence weapons and strategic deterrence platforms, I think that those are national systems. And what I mean by that is that we are doing the care and feed on behalf of the systems that ultimately belong, and I got it, all weapon systems belong to the President of the United States. Mm-hmm. But in particular, when we talk about strategic deterrent weapons, that it's much more than the Columbia being part of the United States Navy or the bomber or ICBM becoming a part of the United States Air Force. And I think there's probably room for conversation on how do we make that so we can not have these conversations on funding.
General, do you believe it's important for the Department of Defense to have reliable U.S. source for these critical satellite components to ensure quality, timely delivery, and fair pricing? And what other risks do you see from having inadequate domestic supply chains for key satellite components?
Senator, thank you for the question. Yes, I do think it's important that we have robust supply chains from trusted sources in the United States. If we don't have that, I think the risk is that this widening lead that our commercial space industry has created for us, that might be stymied, and then that would give our competitors a chance to catch up. So we want to ensure that doesn't happen.
How much dependence our defense capabilities, our offensive capabilities are on our satellite systems?
Yes, Senator, thank you for the question. The Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, our terrestrial forces, if you will, are sized with the implicit assumption they will have access to space capabilities. And because of that, we've been able to, reduce the number of forces that we have, and we can now prosecute targets with much fewer assets than we would have decades ago. If we don't have access to those space capabilities, if those forces do not have access to those space capabilities, we don't have the force structure that we would need to fight without them. So that's why we have to protect and defend these space capabilities against the threats we now see arrayed against us.
So if our adversary was able to demolish 10 of them, all right, would it create much debris?
Almost certainly, yes, Senator.
And how much, if that debris was floating out there, how much of our satellites would be at risk because of just the debris hitting them?
Senator, that is a concern, and it's why we monitor the 45,000 trackable objects on orbit to watch for potential conjunctions, but we don't want to proliferate debris on orbit, which would increase the risk to our systems.
I'm going to keep on Nellis here for a bit. As you know, Space Delta One trains weapons officers. Again, Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. These weapons officers graduate from the pinnacle of training offered by the Space Force to prepare Guardians for what they may need in war. So building on what you may need, what you have now, the ability to model and simulate, how does this prepare your forces, and what can we continue to do to give you that simulation you need, because you may not be able to go up there?
Yeah, thank you, Senator, for the question. I know exactly the great work that happens at Nellis. As I was stationed there a decade ago as the Vice Commander of the Air Force Warfare Center, vital capability. Modeling and simulation is absolutely foundational for us in space because, as you allude to, it's expensive for us to get there, and so we can't just launch all sorts of things just to do training, although there's an aspect of that we need to do. But modeling and simulation allow us to do multiple iterations of various activities and to simulate the threats that we now see arrayed against us, so that these weapons officers have the skills that when they go back to their operational squadrons, they can share that among the crew force. So that modeling and simulation is absolutely critical to us, and we want to continue to grow that capability for all space forces, because that will support Space Command as we move forward.
Could both of you sort of address, I think the perception is that the United States has right now all the nuclear weapons we need to blow up the world into oblivion 1,000 times over, right? So if you were trying to explain the importance of this modernization effort, how would each one of you describe that to folks back home? Why it's important, and specifically why it's important?
Senator Schmidt, I'll start off, and first of all, I want to say thank you because the men and women of Tinker Air Force Base and the work that they're doing in regards to just the bomber campus that's being built out there for one leg of the triad is incredibly important. Going back to your comment, I think the way we should be able to frame it is one, it's not a one for one. So it's not one of these conversations where we're talking about how you have to have a one-for-one or overmatch or those type of things. As we already know, the Russians have more weapons than we have today, but we absolutely hold them at risk. So the way I would describe it to people is you need to understand, it's a proposition in regards to a cost analysis. I want to be able to deter because my adversary understands that the risk of them taking an action would fail upon arrival for them to be able to meet their ultimate needs. So it's a cost benefit analysis model, if you will, and that's what strategic deterrence truly is. And the way we use that cost benefit analysis tool is three legs of the triad.
But as far as the modernization itself, right? How would you describe why that's important? Because if the perception is that we have everything we need to deter because we can, wipe out a country off the face of the earth.
Because we must have the ability to have weapon systems and platforms, a training environment, et cetera, that the adversary, because for deterrence, the adversary always gets a vote, for the adversary to understand that the cost benefit of them taking action won't outweigh, and that the modernized systems can hold them at risk.
Senator, thank you for the question. For space, the challenge is that the American people can't look up and see the space systems. And so they don't even realize the way it's enabling the modern way of life. And so I think it's important we remind the American people of all the great advantages space gives us, that we're never lost anymore because of GPS, that we can synchronize global stock markets and point of sale and precision farming. And if we lost all of that, really our modern way of life would be at risk. And that's why we have to protect and defend those capabilities and make those investments. So I think it's incumbent on all of us to help the American people understand how space truly is a part of their life, even if they can't see it.
I think you alluded to was the sort of end game that we're at with Russia in terms of bilateral negotiations on any sort of a New START treaty or an effort to reduce nuclear weapons. But can you talk about Putin's recent rhetoric around using nuclear weapons and how concerned you are about that?
Yes, thank you, Senator. The conversation we had is I absolutely am a proponent, of treaties, but everyone has to play, and you have to follow the rules. Yes, would I love to see China step up and want to have a negotiation with us? Would I love to see Russia come back? Absolutely. But I'm also a realist to understand that may or may not happen. So as a combatant commander, my job is to understand how do I build a force that I can present to the president if that doesn't happen. But to your point on what we're seeing in the rhetoric, I think what we're seeing is the president of the Russian Federation sees that he can use that as a coercion tool to threaten in regards to what he has as far as a nuclear force.
Can you briefly talk about the nexus between space, cyber, and SOF?
Yes, Senator, thank you for the question. We do see it as a unique opportunity to bring together these three capabilities to help us all three achieve our missions. For example, there's times that using space, we can create accesses for cyber forces who then can support special operation forces, or special operation forces through their unique ability to gain access to certain geographic locations can help us in our space mission by executing functions that support us. And so I have spoken to the commander of Special Operations Command about that, as you noted, have spoken to our Army component about that. And we also leverage the fact that our Navy and Marine Corps components are also cyber components, and so that gives us a unique pairing there as well.
My question for you, sir, is how does a robust refueling tanker fleet sustain STRATCOM missions? If you could elaborate on that, and also elaborate on how the Air Force's acquisition of the new KC-46 tankers will expand your global reach and expand your current capabilities.
Senator Peters, thank you for the question. Something that makes us incredibly unique as a fighting force is we have the ability to fly the entire globe. Even at its onset, the tanker and the bomber were both complementary acquisitions. It gives us incredible reach. That being said, that's why it is such a unique relationship between the tanker force and our bomber force and my air leg, and absolutely critical to my mission set with regards to ensuring that we have sustainable and enough tankers to be able to make that a requirement that can be enduring.
Can you speak of the benefit this brings to the leg of the triad?
Absolutely, Senator. It's absolutely foundational. Tinker and the teammates that are there at Tinker Air Force Base that support that mission leg on behalf of men and women of Air Force Global Strike Command that provides that leg to me is absolutely critical. The fact that we're expanding and building a bomber campus, if you will, in preparation of B-21 is going to be extremely important, but even more so the production of the B-52J as we go through the commercial engine replacement program for that jet.
Currently, we have a company in our state who's working on a quantum and physics-based communication techniques. Is that a big role for you guys?
Senator, I think it could be. I think that's one of those new technologies that would give us a way perhaps to defeat traditional jamming techniques. And so I certainly would encourage the research lab and the science and technology community to continue to work on that and for companies to bring mature capabilities forward in that area.
Is our defense industry capable to make those changes? When we're working on a system that they say is 3 years, 4 years out, in some cases, most of the time it's 7, are they able to pivot when new technology comes on? Because obviously this is a growing space and a growing concern. So there's new finds and new technology that's coming on constantly. Are we able to pivot? I'll hold that for both of y'all in defense to say, yes, we want to start moving this direction.
For us, as we're looking at our modernization programs across the portfolio, what we're seeing that's different in the way we want to do business, Senator, is through modularity. So having the opportunity for modularity is going to be critical for us and crucial for us, because then we can outpace and stay ahead of the adversary.
Go into closed session in the SVC. So at this point, we will close the open session.